Alright, what is up everybody? It's your boy Richie Rich, and we back at it again with an Ork tier list, this time covering all of the fast attack vehicles over here. Fast attack vehicles definitely have a special place in my heart because when I first started playing Orcs, it was due to really the Armageddon Codex coming out and the whole Speed Freaks thing coming out, and I really enjoyed the whole lore and fluff of Orcs just running around on vehicles doing crazy stuff. And that's really what began my org journey. So I am a huge fan of Fast Attack. Now, keep in mind, I am rating these for competitive play, and I'm not the most experienced player when it comes to competitive play. So I do weight my tier listings on units that make it into the competitive tier list. Now, Orc buggies have taken quite a hit as of late, just due to the fact that there's a lot of units now that are much more resilient to shooting power, and they're also able to dish out a lot of high damage weapons. Most often, you're going to be running into things like raiders, plague burst crawlers, things that can just basically blow up the buggies before they can be that useful. That being said, I still do believe that a lot of these buggy choices are very viable. When I am listing these fast attack options, I am going to be pretty much weighting them based on personal experience and what I'm looking at and reading in the competitive scene. Now, because I am rating these units based on competitive play, I'm not only weighting them on their durability and their killing potential, but I'm also weighting them on things like their ability to get secondaries and also capture primaries. Fast attack as a whole generally has a harder time dealing with objectives because you don't have as many bodies as horde units or lists with more infantry, and also vehicles, at least in the orc armies, don't have OPSEC, so that can be a difficult time for the buggy list. Really, when you're looking at buggy lists, you're really thinking about how much kill potential it has because you're just trying to shoot everything off the map and the objectives and just kind of race up in there before the enemies can react. So without further ado, let's get started. And the first on the list is the Deffkopta. Now the Deffkopta I put at a B because it's used a lot in lists, especially horde lists, to have a cheap and quick way to capture and engage on all fronts. For that reason alone, I think it deserves a B. The melee and the shooting potential is decent. It's okay. It's got big shooters and it basically has orc melee, which is, as we all know, pretty deadly. But not a lot of people are fielding multiple units of this, and really it's just being used as a cheap way to get engaged on all fronts. That being said, you do have moments and potential for this thing to get into backline and charge things like Plague Burst Crawlers and those other nasty units to just kind of deny their shooting for a turn so that you can protect things in your front line. For those reasons, Deffkoptas I think are a good choice for horde units and potentially even buggyless, although with buggyless you're better off using the fast attack slot for other things. So for that reason, I put the Deffkopta at a B. Stormboyz, and Stormboyz I would put as an A. So because Death Skulls gives the Stormboyz OPSEC, they're very good at stealing primaries from opponents who are just leaving elite units in their objectives. So for that reason, I would put Stormboyz at an A. And while their durability is quite low due to the fact that they have essentially a boys stat line, their melee it does have some potential. So you can still pick off a couple of models here and there with Stormboyz, and especially in ninth edition where it's really about having bodies, 15 attacks coming from a bunch of orcs could be quite devastating. So for that reason, I put it at an A. Now the Warbikers. Warbikers, man, I love the models, but unfortunately, they don't seem to make up for their points. They are very fast, but unlike Deffkoptas or Stormboyz, they don't have the fly keyword, so oftentimes you're gonna find that they don't have much utility as Stormboyz and Deffkoptas. Again, ninth edition competitive play is really about scoring those points, and Warbikers are really suffering on the fact that they're not, while they are quite mobile, there's a lot of terrain on the battlefield, and in terms of their damage output, it's really quite low, and their durability is also quite low for their point cost. So for that reason, I put them as a D tier. I really do hope that we can see some changes made to Warbikers so that we can see them in more competitive games. Because I think they're a cool unit and I think they're a lot of fun. On the converse, the Nobz on Warbikes I would put at a C. While they do suffer from the same weaknesses as the regular Warbikers, they do have an extra wound, so that definitely counts for something. That's why I put them at C because you would rather have these over the Warbikers. Now Nobz again suffering from the fact that they're not very killy and they're not very durable, and lacking the fly keyword does make it a little tricky for these guys to get onto points. As well, bikers do not have OPSEC, so that makes the Stormboyz shine greatly over the bikers in terms of capturing primary objectives. So for that reason, I put the Nobz on Warbikes at a C. Next up, we have the Snazzwagon. Snazzwagon, I'll put at a C. Snazzwagon has some potential. It's essentially an anti-chaff orc vehicle, but with orcs, you really don't have huge problems clearing chaff because you just got boys, right? Like 30 boys is gonna just wipe the floor of any chaff unit, like whether it be poxwalkers or guardsmen. Hell, even if you manage to get a charge on some witches, those witches are dead. For those reasons, I don't really see Snazzwagons being that important in Hordes lists, and also in Buggy lists. I think that the similar point costed custom Boosta Blasta is a lot better choice. The Snazzwagon does increase its durability by having -1 to hit. However, I still believe that due to the lack of as much firepower as custom Boosta Blastas, I would put the Snazzwagon at a C. Now the custom Boosta Blasta I really like. I put that as an A. It has one of the longer range weapons for an orc buggy. It is good at picking off light armored to even medium armored vehicles because it has a strength 7 gun. Also, it's good at clearing chaff because it has auto hit flamers. And it has quite a bit of them. It has 4 flamers on them. So it's a great unit. I think it's well costed. From the videos that I've seen on them, it seems to be better placed to run them in the backfield. Now, when I ran custom Booster Blasters, and I only really ran them I played them in 2 games. I think I put them 2 in the front line, so they just kind of died before they put out a lot of damage. But watching a lot of videos like Seth the Mad Doc, who has a great YouTube channel, I'll put a link below. He talks about how he uses custom Booster Blasters, kind of put them in the back and just as like a gun line and just kind of shoot at things. So in terms of capturing points and scoring secondaries, custom boosters blast is probably not going to do a whole lot of that, but it is going to be really helpful in clearing a lot of units on the opponent's side of the map so that you can push your buggies forward and basically try to score objectives that way. So for that reason, it being having quite good killing potential, being versatile, I would put this at an A tier unit. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention is that it has a great stratagem, which gives its flamers, I believe, -1 AP and extra strength, which is actually huge because that makes it even better at clearing some harder chaff units like a horde of boys, for instance. All right, moving on to the Megatrakk. Ooh wee, the Megatrakk is everything that an orc player wants in a buggy. It's got a lot of guns. That first of all, it has 2 twin-linked big shooters, so it has 12 big shooter shots, which is great for chaff, and it has also a 2D3 rocket launcher, and it has a regular rocket launcher. So it's got a lot of shooty, it's got a lot of great killing potential. Not only that, but this thing also can fight twice in melee because of corkscrew. So that's about as orky as a buggy gets. You've got super Dakka and you've got some great melee. This thing also hitting at strength 8 in melee, so it's kicking some ass for sure in melee. Megatrakk Scrapjets, definitely gotta thank Gork and Mork for Megatrakk Scrapjets. Now they are the least mobile of the buggies, so realistically it's more of like a bully unit where you just kind of try to shoot and fight things out of the way. You're probably not gonna be holding these things in the back line. At least I typically don't. I like to get up in there with these Megatrakk Scrapjets. almost act like a horde of boys. Now, the downside is that there's a lot of high damage units in this meta currently, so it is quite easy to blow up the Megatrakk Scrapjets, but if these things gets their shots off, if they get into melee, it's quite deadly. Especially because these things also have the Ram's ability so that it deals mortal wounds on a charge. Which, in a game where you're only having 5 turns, a couple mortal wounds could really shift the game in your favor. So for those reasons, I put the Megatrakk strongly as an S tier unit. Next up, we have the Squigbuggy. The Squigbuggy, honestly, I put this between a C and a D. The Me personally, I'll put it as a D, but I'm weighting it towards C because I saw a list where someone was running actually 6 Squigbuggies and basically using them as like a kamikaze buggy because these things explode on a 4 plus. So they would just kind of run them into the opponent's objectives and basically hope for them to explode and deal mortal wounds. Now they can also lay mines, but they can only lay 1 mine per game each, which is not a whole lot. Honestly, the Squig Buggies, their guns are a little underwhelming. Their maximum strength is a strength 6. I do think it is interesting that they get a different option of weapons to shoot from during their shooting phase, but they just feel a little flat, and I think they're just really outshined by the other buggies that are at the same cost, such as the Scrapjets and the Shokkjump rifles. And the Shokkjump Dragsta, sorry, not the Shokkjump rifles. So for that reason, I would put the Squig Buggies as a C tier unit. Now the Shock Jumps, I think, are an amazing unit. I put them strongly as an S tier. These things are super shooty. They essentially have 2 custom Mega Blastas that hit on a 3 plus, which is the envy of orc shooting everywhere, and they have a missile launcher. Now their melee is not quite as good as the Megatrakk, so these are definitely units that you just want to be keeping at a distance and sniping things. What makes them so much better is that they can teleport. So when you advance with them, and if you have the custom job that basically lets them auto teleport, you just you're just teleporting around the map, and because the weapons are assault, you can still shoot them after you are advancing. So that means that instead of 3 ups, you're hitting on 4 ups, but 4 ups for orcs, death skulls, that's a good amount of damage. Teleporting also really helps with doing things like getting engaged on all fronts, getting line breaker, and it can definitely help in the mid to late game if you're kind of thin on units and you just need some models to hold objectives. So for those reasons, I think that the shock jump definitely deserves being an S tier unit. Next up, we have Grot Tanks, and honestly, Grot Tanks, I'm just gonna put them straight at the D tier because they really don't perform that well. I really like the models and they're cool, they're fluffy, but they're just too weak for their point cost. Like they cost 35 points and they just don't do a whole lot. They have D6 plus 6 movement, so it's random movement. They're really bad in melee. They have literally, I think, the worst melee profile in the Orc or army. Their shooting's okay. They got 4 plus to shooting, but overall, I just think that it's just not really a unit that makes up for its point cost. I mean, it is interesting that they come in groups, so you could argue, yeah, well, you could use these things to capture stuff, but they don't have OPSEC, so that's kind of a moot point. And they don't have funky stratagems like the Raiders do, where they can just kind of move away from charges and stuff like that. And they're Gretchen, so they don't get clan culture, so who knows? Maybe with the new codexes, with Gretchen's being incorporated more, we may see them being played. But right now, in their current state, there's literally no list that I could find that really run Grot tanks. So for that reason, I put them in the D tier. Now the Grot Mega Tank, on the other hand, I think is a A tier unit. I think this is a severely underlooked unit. Now it is expensive in the way that it does take up a whole detachment slot, whereas with the buggies you could have 3 of these or 3 of these, 3 of these, or 3 of these, or 3 of these for 1 slot of a fast attack. But the weapon choices that you can have on a Grot Mega Tank are quite insane. You can literally give it 7 Scorchas, 7 Custom Mega Blastas, 7 Rockets, 7 Big Shooters, or 7 Grot. I have tested Grot Megatanks a lot, and I find that they're very, very good, and they often do a lot of killing. This is not really a unit that you're gonna be maneuvering around too much. At least that's not the way that I played it. You just kind of want it to stay back and shoot, unless you give it Scorchas, in which case you want it to zoom around and basically flamer all of the infantry units. So, in terms of scoring points, really the best thing that this can do for you is just kind of clear stuff so that you can score points. That being said, I found that it's very good at clearing stuff. Personally, I'm not running them as much because I like running buggy, so I prefer having like 3 Megatracks or 3 Shokkjumps instead of using it as a fast attack. But I would say that and I've experimented with horde lists where I put it in, basically I put it in a Grot mob detachment with some mech guns, and I really liked giving it big shooters and scorchers, and I also liked giving it big shooters and custom mega blasters as a way to run around and help the mech guns with the backline. So that's it for my orc tier list for the fast attack units. I hope that you guys got some value out of this, and I actually hope that inspires you to try some of these units out. Honestly, at the end of the day, we all play Warhammer even competitively for fun. So you should definitely be playing the units and the models that you think are cool and interesting and really enjoying yourself when you're playing this game. Otherwise, why play it at all? And definitely, the people who are trying new things out in the meta are the ones who innovate the meta. So you should always be looking out for new strategies and tactics that most players overlook, because that will give you an edge when it comes to list building. Overall, I do think that this list is a fair representation of not only my personal opinion, but the current competitive meta in terms of orc fast attack. So this could give you a decent foundation in terms of building a list, especially when you're using fast attack. I'm very excited for the new Ork Codex, and I think a lot of you are as well. Definitely leave your thoughts below, and tell me what you would do differently, or what you would rate higher, or maybe even what you would rate lower. As always, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe, as I'm gonna have more content. I'm really gunning to finish the whole tier list before the next codex comes out, and hopefully I can do that in time. Again, as always, keep on rolling those dice, and you guys stay safe and have a great day out there.